Hello, my name is Ike, and I teach several business economics courses to BCom and MBA students. The courses I teach generally will reflect on how economics, to an extent, will affect individuals, businesses, households, and so on. For example, one of the courses on work and equity discourses, for example, what are the factors contributing to individuals' productivity at work? The other course as well on sustainable businesses and cities discusses an important aspect of sustainability. How can we ensure that our societies and cities are safe and conducive for humans to live? So generally, our business economics courses are not just about numbers, but about real problems facing societies today. My journey into teaching started back in high school. I would observe the junior students generally struggling with courses or subjects, and I will just somehow organize a kind of tutorial where I help them out solve some problems. Why? Because I also had similar struggles. So seeing them struggle, I felt that, okay, I needed to do something. But the very significant aspect of it, why I teach, is seeing the joy that they exude. For example, when they pass a given course and so on. That really stuck, with me. And I started thinking, okay, what can I also do differently? I've got an uncle who is a professor of urban history, kind of, and I would observe him as well. I would observe how he teaches. I would observe his research inputs, research materials, and to an extent, I see just by mere conversation how some of his, works, to an extent, are changing lives positively and contributing to societies. And in fact, that also stuck with me. So from there on, I thought, you know what, Ike, you have to teach. And certainly it led me to teach across all levels. In fact, I taught in we call it preschool, nursery school there in Nigeria. I taught in high school, then before, okay, here we are today. Anyways, so one thing that I enjoy so much is, again, the happiness, the joy that students exude, especially when they become a better version of themselves. When I see these things, these are the inspirations I draw from students, and these are the things that keep me going and why I do what I do. Such that I walk into the classroom each day and I say, Ike, what can you do differently? How can you make someone's life better off, no matter how small it is? So my mother always says that let your presence brighten someone's day, no matter how small it is. And I try to live by this in my teaching. So generally, my teaching philosophy is built around care. It's built around respect. It's built around the fact that students learn best when they are valued. In other words, I tend to bring empathy into the classroom. I try to check in with the students to know how they're doing as much as I can. Why is that the case? Because when they are seen, when they are valued, they tend to be their best. So generally, I see the classroom as well as a human-centered space. And it is that space as well where there's empathy, where care flourishes. Of course, content matters as well, but it cannot go in isolation, right? They have to go hand in hand. Right. So generally, I try more or less to model a kind of teaching environment that promotes students' intellectual thinking. And that's why I walk into the classroom smiling as much as I can, regardless of how I feel at the moment. Why? Because I believe that smile can also help as well. Passing that message that they are valued as well. And regardless of the challenges, just then be happy. So I also do regular check-ins. For example, I never start a class without checking in on students and asking, how are you doing today? Are you happy? Is everything okay? Again, all these things do matter. Why? Because emotional well-being must go hand in hand with academic success. So generally, my teaching philosophy is more or less rooted more towards care-informed rigor that cares for the students and also cares for their academic success, because it's only a healthy mind that can also achieve greatness and success. So when I design a course, I ensure that I think of the end goal in mind, first of all. And what's the end goal? I ask the key question, what kind of experience will students gain from this class, right? So first of all, I think about how are they able to think critically. Secondly, I also consider how are they also able to think ethically. And finally, the professional element. So I now try to also make sure that each of these key goals align with the core, the school's competency goals for the BCom programs and of course for the MBA classes. Then I try to also align each element of the assessments or deliverables or quizzes to align with each of these. For example, as well, in terms of the professional development, I ensure that especially those elective courses like sustainable businesses and cities or a class in business economics or labor economics, work and inequality or gender, I bring external speakers who will share several insights related to whether it's in the energy market space or general issues. So overall, I ensure that to an extent that students get something tangible from the class, from these professionals and so on, linking them to career opportunities out there and so on. Innovation can take several forms. But in my opinion, it's about making learning engaging, making learning personal, and making learning interesting and fun. For example, the first innovative model that I adopt in classes is, again, using what you call the flipped classroom model. And this flipped classroom model, I will generally prepare a recorded lecture and allowing students to watch such recordings before class. Why is this important? Giving them the opportunity to know what is to come, also freeing up significant time that can be used for other discussion and so on. In addition to that, I also introduce several games, as simple as Kahoot game, right? Where I pose some questions and students respond to those. And that also tries to make the class fun and also get students engaged and talking. All right, so my father will always say something. He always tells me that, Ike, it's better for you to think robustly than not thinking at all. And that is the power of critical thinking. I always reflect every class before and after. In fact, after the classes, I do ask, Ike, what did you do today? What could be done differently, right? I reflect on how I discuss several topics. I also ask students as well to think, what do you think could be done better? Also, a form of reflection is also using these midterm evaluations where I ensure that students evaluate the class tell me what they think is going on, what they think could be better, and what they think could also change. And that allows me, again, those feedbacks, for example, that I get from the student, to an extent will help me think more about the content, think more about what can be done better, and so on. So I never stop reflecting, and the power of reflection is the only way that we can drive more or less the best outcome in our teaching. Oh, great question. Well, every moment with a student is indeed remarkable and rewarding. I honestly cannot point out which is better or less, but what I can say is that the most remarkable aspect of it, or the very important aspect of it, is, seeing students transform themselves from what they were before to something greater, right? For example, I've had a student who approached me and told me that he needed to work on a project. Simple advice or simple suggestions on potential topics. It's really fascinating to see how he built this into an empire, end quote. What I mean by that is he transformed that project, created a blog out of it, and also indeed landed them, great jobs in high, great companies. And also I've had students also tell me how my classes, to an extent, encouraged them, helped them to be themselves, and also promoted their intellectual curiosity, promoted how they see things, and so on. So some of these things are some things that we do, no matter how small it is, that will keep encouraging us to do the best we can to promote learner-focused environment that promotes individual growth. Great question, by the way, and I will say, who am I? Anyways, so to teach without learning is like speaking without listening. That the best teachers are the best learners who are curious as well. So my candid advice to new instructors is to be the student. Assume that you are teaching yourself as a learner. What are those things that you did well and you didn't do well from the point of a student and also a learner? That it is when we place ourselves in this position that we'll be able to see things from both angles, as a teacher, as a learner. So if one is not willing to learn, I think one may not be a great teacher. So teach and learn at the same time.